In our parasha, in Sefer Bereshit, parasha talks about the story of Avimelech and all the wells in which, and that's what the pasuk is saying, and all the wells in which the servants of Abraham dug. What happened was Satbum Plishtim, the Philistines covered them all up with dirt, and they basically ruined the wells in which they dig. Of course, we have to wonder, why did the Philistines cover those wells that will bring in water with dirt? I mean, okay, I'm not suggesting they should have covered it with cement, but why would you do something like this? I mean, afterwards you drink from that. What's so bad about having an abundance of water that was bringing it? So Rashi on this pasuk, on this verse, says the following: Mipnei she'amru, because they say, the Philistines, to themselves, Takalahem lanu, it's going to be a problem for us to have those people, those wells here. Mipnei hageisot habayim aleinu. Mipnei hageisot, in other words, are you afraid of army troops? They're going to come upon you? Wait a minute. Who is coming upon you? The Philistines were like a local, powerhouse. Their cousins, the Egyptians, were, who would come to you because of the water? I mean, what are you talking about? So it's not really understood, and yet because of army troops that are coming to you, you're going to prevent yourself from water? It absolutely doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, you should really have water. If the army is coming, make sure you have more water. And of course, we have to ask another question, is because it says again about the wells in which the servants of Yitzchak, not of Abraham, dug, and then the Philistines did the same thing. They covered them up again. Which is almost the same thing as happened with Abraham, happened with Yitzchak, without almost any difference whatsoever. Again, fighting, and again, they have borot maim. It means borot maim, not only be'erot. Be'er is a well, but borot maim is also, it takes a lot of work, and we explain right. You dig certain pits in the ground, and they have to be deep enough, cool enough, and you have to cover them all with lime in order for it to, when it rains, to basically save the water. So you want the water to go to the aquifer, you want the water to have accessible for you. And then the names that they give them: oshek, oppression; sitna, hatred; and rechovot. Why is the Torah telling us all this story? Is there anything that we could learn from that? Anything that we could apply to our lives from this crazy story? So there was a sefer, it's called Ktav HaKabbalah. He brings the following, brings a very interesting opinions, and it says that one of the ways that Avraham Avinu interacted to bring the belief, the faith in one God to the world was through those borot mayim, through those wells and water pits that he dug. So beyond what he was doing all the time in terms of guests and welcoming people and so on and so forth, and giving them a place to eat, a place to eat, to sleep, and to drink, or whichever order you want. He also used those wells as a place to bring people closer to God, and he writes the following: Himtzi tachbula, that's Sefer Ktav HaKabbalah. He writes, Himtzi tachbula nifla. He came up with this ingenious idea. Le'achnis, to bring in, al yedei amudim el tachat kanfei hashchina, by those people that don't know, to bring them under the wings of God, as they say. How? Kol ba'er asher kara ota b'shem asher yoreh al metziut Hashem. He calls them, he gave those wells names which would correspond with the existence of God in the world and the kindness that God does in the world. And by doing so, people associate. You know, he I guess Avraham Avinu in this case created the first, you know, how do you call this? You know, brand names. When you put something on you, right, you associate, or you would like to create an association between yourself and the item to kind of project on yourself. So if he called the Be'er Emunah, right, so people drink from Emunah, I said, which one? Oh, Emunah. Really? Believe in what? What are you believing? Oh, I don't know, I believe in God. And that's how we basically brought about the concept of talking about God and talking about the belief in one God, and start a discussion by associating the names of the wells with the belief in one God. I think it's ingenious. Avraham Avinu was a marketing genius. So Avraham was really, and what was that? Avraham was looking for a place in which people would gather all the time. So he identified that concept of Be'er Mayim, a well, or a water pit that is there, as a very essential place. I remember driving to the desert in Israel, to the Negev, you know, many years, many times, and actually walking and hiking there, you see all of a sudden a well somewhere, and you'll be surprised. It becomes a place of gathering. You see the people were there, they're eating, they're drinking, they're waiting, they're taking the water. It's a very special and important place. So important that sometimes they would even make a roof around it. You know, remember, about places like that. So he identified the potential in something like that, and guess what? He didn't just go in and grabbed, you know, somebody's well and renamed it. He said, no, we're going to be entrepreneurs here. I'm going to dig my own wells. I'm going to dig and excavate my own water pits, and they're going to be called according to the way I did. And of course, it's very important because, you know, when you're coming into a place and you give something give something a name, you know, it carries a certain meaning. So one of the ways the conquerors come in and establish their foothold in a place is by changing the name of certain places, rivers, you know, mountains, and so on and so forth. For example, the Tappan Zee Bridge, right? Tappan were Indian, you know, Native Americans that live on that side, not the Muncie side, the other side, the eastern side of the Hudson. And there was a chief, you know, so there was the Tappan Zee, so they called it after the name. So it kind of gave a name, an association for the people who used to live there by naming a bridge after there, in honor of them, and so on and so forth. But they changed it now into Mario Como Bridge. There is a meaning to that as well. The same thing, the Hudson River. Hudson River had a different name, and they changed it, you know. Why the Mississippi has to stand with the Mississippi, even though it's not an American name, and the Hudson River was, I don't know how to say it in Algonquin, however, it was the river that flows in two directions, because it gave an indication to the nature of the river, and now they changed it into Hudson. It tells you, I am rooted into this place. It's mine now. It's very interesting, though. And I do have to say that many times we find places in Israel, of the original places where they were, as we find them in the Mikra, in the Talmud, based on the Arabic name, because they didn't really change it. They made it into Arabic name, but they didn't change the name. So it carries a tremendous importance, naming a place. So Avraham Avinu says, I'm not coming here to oppress anyone. It's a desert. It's a place of, it's no man's land. I'm going to dig the wells. I'm going to make the water pits. Hello, Yitzchak. I'm going to take the water pits, and I'm going to name them, give them names, in which would be associated with emunah, with the belief in one God and monotheism, and so on and so forth. They'll carry the meaning of people, and they will have also an influence on the people because of, you know, the human, need to associate themselves with something. So that's their associate. That's how it goes, kind of through the back door into the subconscious, the concept of the belief in one God. And that's basically what he's saying. And as we said, he identified this place. And as we see right away in, I think a good example for that, of the importance of that, when Eliezer meets Rivka. Right? Where did he meet her? He met her by the water. When Yaakov meets Rachel, where did he meet her? By the wells. Everything was happening at the time. There were the moles of the old world. They were the city squares of the old. They were the strip of the old world, because everything was happening around there. Everybody would come there to water the animals, and everything with the markets were there, and they would exchange things and barter for things. So he identified it and did it, and so on and so forth. So Abraham dug those wells, and he gave everybody free water. Free water. According to what he says, according to the measures, you don't have to pay. It's free water. However, there is a condition. I want you to bless Hashem. I want to make a bracha to Hashem. Thank Hashem for the water. I'm giving you for free. So that's what they did. That's how he stepped it up one more step. So all of a sudden, we can learn from that the story of the water wells, you see, carries a tremendous, or even a different meaning to what we thought before. It's much greater than just a fight between this people or that people. As you could see it creeping out from under the surface, something greater is actually have to do with that. And, if we think about it, basically are you going to admit that there is a God out there in the world by you making a bracha, by you thanking God? Say, thank God for the water, thank Elokei Avraham for the water, and so on and so forth. Or are you going to, be an idol worshiper? In other words, by doing so, he was trying to establish what kind of culture human society is going to be based on. And that's how he chose to do it. Now, the argument of the people of the Philistines, right, is maybe troops will come, really reminds us something else. What does it remind us, Yeshua? Who's that?
No, the Mitzrayim.
The Mitzrayim. Yeah, the Mitzrayim. The claiming of Paro in Egypt, right? Hava nitchakma lo. Let's play tricks on him. Pen yirbe. We're going to multiply. וכי תקרא למלחמה ונוסף גמור על סולנו ונלחם בנו ועלה מן הארץ. If we're going to have a war, they're going to be a fifth column, they're going to take over us, and so on and so forth. So you see, many times, you might be doing the right thing, but they're going to be people who are not interested in doing the right thing. So instead of doing the right thing, they're going to make sure to sabotage you, so you would not do the right thing. And that's exactly what happens here. And Dayale Hakima Bermiza. So, you see that it's becoming a little clear about what's going on here. Now, if you look, for example, let's look a little deeper in that. If you look at Aliyat Shlishi in the Parashat, it really talks about the way Yitzchak became greater in the city of Gerar, which is a Philistine city. It became so big over there that the people, all of a sudden, in Gerar, the Philistines saw him as a nuisance, as a burden. They didn't want him to be around, and they basically tell him, listen, buddy, get out of here. They kick him out. Sounds familiar. And then the king comes to him and says to him, Al Yomar Avimelech Mana Mimenu Ki, right? Don't say that I did it, because it's the reason why I'm telling you to go, because you're just too big for us. I'm not kicking you, but you're just too big for us. There's no room for the two of us in this town, as they say. It says we and it's not that we're trying to come up for a reason. I mean, which is true, but let's see exactly what if the Torah tells me it becomes big. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's too much for them to carry. He has a lot of sheep. He has a lot of people. So maybe he is right. So let's see what's going on here. But apparently he's not. But it's very difficult still, even if we said that, to understand his logic. What does it mean when when it says ki atzamta mimenu meod, because you became too great, you became so much greater than us, than we are. Why didn't he say, because simply, listen, Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, do me a favor, get out of here, we don't like you, we hate you. Just why do you have to come up with such an excuse? What does he want to say? I mean, after all, there is a covenant that was set in place between Avraham and Avimelech, and now that there is hunger in the land, right? As a part of this covenant, right? Yitzchak has the right to come there because we made this deal, right? We made this deal, and now you got to fulfill your part of the deal. So what is that you telling me that I need to go? Are you trying to break the covenant to what you and my father did? Let's say, for example, I don't know, Iran is going to get now strong because they have Russia and China on its side, and Israel and all the other places in the Middle East become friendly, and not because they really love each other so much, but we have Iran as a threat. So therefore, Saudi and Israel and Bahrain and Shmacharain and all the other places make a peace treaty. However, it's really more of a come and help me when I need you kind of a business. So, for example, if Iran attacks Saudi Arabia, Israel will have to come to their aid. And you can say, I'm sorry, we don't have budget right now. We can't do that. That's a deal you made. And the other way around, if Iran will attack Israel, let's see that happens, but Saudi Arabia will have to come to the aid of Israel. Okay, let's see that happen, but you know what I'm saying. It's a covenant. A deal is both ways. It's only one way. So, but if you want to break the covenant, that's fine. Just say it. We don't want to do this anymore. Tell me we don't want to do this anymore. So why are you telling me that you're just too big for us? We can't take you anymore. So the answer for that comes in the great idea that we see in the first aliyah, on the first pasuk of this aliyah, on aliyah shlishi. It says, "Vegadol ad ki haloch veigdal lemeod gadal haish." It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense grammatically. Why do you have to say 3 times he became, and I'll try to translate it to the best of my abilities like that. And it says, Vegadal, and became great, and then, and the reason is, Ki haloch veigdal meod, because he kept on growing. He became big, and he kept on growing, and then he became even super big than that. It just doesn't make sense. So what's in that? So, if you really look, there is no, I'm not such a great scholar, but I don't think there's another pasuk, another verse that has the poal, the verb repeated in it 3 times within one pasuk. It's very weird, it's very unique. So what does it mean? Why can't you just say the following? And Yitzchak Avinu became stinking rich. He became a billionaire. Just say, that's it. Why do you have to tell me this? It became big, and then became bigger, and then became the biggest, mega, mega 97. Right? Why do you have to say it like that? So, I'm just going to tell you something. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Alav Shalom, right, had a wonderful thing on that. And one of his sichot, it sees that the reason why it says different ways, gadal, igdal, and so on and so forth, 3 different stages of growth. And that's what it says, and the connection has to do with what happened in the pasuk before that, in the last pasuk of Parashat Sheni, Vayizra Yitzchak Ba'aretz ha'ih v'imsa b'shana ha'ih 100 she'arim v'yvarech Hashem, and so on and so forth, and Hashem blessed them, and so on. So he sees each one that it says that that basically indicates to the process of growth of Yitzchak, the way he became not only big. It's a process. He didn't play the lottery. He became big overnight. It's through the brachaj of Hashem. He planted, and then he found 100 gates. 100 gates of what? 100 she'arim in Yerushalayim. 100 gates of what? 100 gates of bracha, they came. And then Hashem blessed them all. So you see also for you, in terms of your growth, it has to do something. You have to plant the seeds. The bracha is not going to come unless you're going to plant the seed. You have to plant the seeds. And then your eyes will be open. And after you do all these things, and you open those gates, and you find the gates, and you open them, then Hashem will bless you. And it is a very, very important point to understand. And that's what, look at the Sichot of the Lubavitcher Rebbe over there brings it. It's just a very nice idea in terms of his growth. So it's not just that it became rich, it became big in all aspects. And that was a little bit of a problem for them, to do so. to heaven here. So now, when Avimelech and Pichal tell him, listen, you're bigger than us, it's a tremendous point, and we need to look at this. In other words, Avraham Avinu was Isha Chesed. So Avraham Avinu dug the pits, dug the holes, dug the wells, and the water needs to kind of seep in to become full. And with the calling of Hashem's name and giving the names and so on and so forth, you're basically changing not only the people, you're also changing the atmosphere of the place itself. And that was the problem. Avraham Avinu was considered to be Chesed, and Chesed is water, right? And the water that goes down, 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 and they water everything. As we learn in the Mishnah in Masechet Ta'anit, even if the rain comes, he has to cover all levels. The rain has to come for the trees. It has to be enough rain for the trees. It has to be enough rain for the grasses. It has to be enough for the wells and for the pits. In other words, that's called Gishmei Bracha. Rain of blessing. It has to be rain that will be good for everything. So the same thing. The ashpa'ah, the influence of Avraham Avinu was so great that Avraham Avinu did not care who it is. He did not only speak to the rich people, argument's sake. He did not give aliyah only to the guy who gives the most money. He gave aliyah to everybody. That's why I don't like when they sell in Sephardi shuls, they sell the aliyot. Because, if I have more money than you, you have no chance of getting an aliyah ever. And I think it's wrong. But that's a different sugya altogether. So Avraham Avinu was really like this. He was able to bring he had enough koach to bring the bracha all the way down. And even if he was in a ground that was very sandy, because it's in a desert, sandy or very rocky, he was still able to do so. But Yitzchak did something else. Yitzchak found the place in which he can dig the water, and the water will come from the bottom up, and then will come up this way. And not for nothing, the Torah comes and tells us such a long story about Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak. So two different things. Avraham Avinu created the vessels to come in from the above. The bracha will come from above. Yitzchak Avinu digs it, and then he brings it from the tehom, from the bottom. He brings it out and it erupts, and that's too much for the Philistines to get. Because he was really, his ability came all the way down from the, somebody's at the door standing. His ability to come all the way down from the bottom, that was just simply too great for them. Because water that comes from the bottom, it comes with pressure, it comes with force, and it like erupts. And that was the flow that the Yitzchak Avinu was able to create was tremendous. It was tremendous. So they just didn't do it. And Yitzchak could have sit in Gerar. He could have sat in Gerar and so on and so forth. He could argue with that. But he didn't want to sit in this place because, and they didn't want him there. And the main reason why they didn't want him there is simply because he could change the whole entire Gerar, the whole entire place. He could have changed it into a place of Torah. They didn't want to do that. He could have taken the hard rock, the hard bedrock of Gra, of the Plishtim, of the place that everybody is like, metzachek, if you know what I mean, metzachek is, right? Where really, and somebody asked me about Ishmael, if he did the right thing, and so on and so forth. So, if you understand the meaning of metzachek, of laughing, you understand why Sarah says, Habibi, take him and get out of here. And then Avraham Avinu says, what should I do? And Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, Ishmael, she's a greater prophet than you, whatever she tells me you do, you do. Don't argue with her. Yitzchak was able to come to the most bottom place and bring about the people up there, and they didn't want to do it because they supplied the people with all the desires that they need. Whatever they need, he gave them. Avimelech and his Pichol Tzeva'ot, they gave them. They wanted promiscuous things, not a problem. Esherish, not a problem. You want drugs, not a problem. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, to all. Let's go. That's what and all of a sudden they saw the change that happens with the people. They say, hey, your power, your spiritual power is too great for us to deal. You're going to turn everybody here into a tzaddik. We don't want this. Habibi, do me a favor, just get telech people. And what's interesting about it is that the word hatred appears in the Torah the first time in this parasha. And if you want to know what hatred is, sin'ah, to hate somebody is really for no ulterior reason, for no reason. You just hate him because he is. Yitzchak Avinu did not do anything wrong there. On the contrary, he was making things better. They just couldn't do it. And you got like this to many people or many places that things are not happening so kosher. Comes a person who wants to do the right thing. They're either going to get rid of him or they're simply going to make him leave. One of the two. Right, Reeves? That's exactly what it is, Rabotai. That's exactly what it is. So Yitzchak was allowed also to sit there in Gerar because he was in a different mitzvah. There was a different reality altogether. He was the sacrifice. He was the Paschal lamb before he was Pesach, right? He just doesn't just sit there. He doesn't just sit there and does nothing. He is the channel in which HaKadosh, the bracha comes. Ve'yevarcheu Hashem, and Hashem blesses him. Water is a sign of abundance. When there is water, there is abundance. There is shefa. There is chesed, there is shefa, and so on and so forth. They were not interested in having people as much water as they can. Because I'll tell you this, if I control the amount of water you drink, I control everything you have in your life. Or consume, because I would control the amount of grain, the amount of animals you'll be able to grow, and how much you're going to drink or not. I'm controlling you. They wanted to restrict their hold of the people. Yitzchak Avinu and Avraham Avinu said, no, that's not going to happen. We want everybody to be equal, everybody to drink, everybody to enjoy the abundance. They wanted a capitalist, they wanted a feudal system, where I'm going to tell you what to do, controlling the water, and not for nothing, Syria and Jordan always were battle with Israel, and who's going to control the water that comes to where? To the Sea of Galilee, and to the Jordan, from there to the Dead Sea. It goes to the Dead Sea, who cares? No, you don't understand. If you control the water, you can turn the flow of things, the shefa of things, and they didn't want to do it. And when they filled up, because of they saw what's happening, because of their hatred to Yitzchak, so they simply covered all the borot, all the wells in which Avraham Avinu dug, in order to close the tzinorot hashefa, the 22 pipes of abundance that come down to this world. They wanted to close it. They couldn't allow abundance to come because I am the one who should have all the money. You are going to work for me. I don't want you to be wealthy. I'm going to oppress you with regulations to such an extent that I'm going to tell you how much you're going to drink and where you're going to drink. I don't want everybody to have free water. By the way, do you think that you're allowed to dig in your own backyard and get water and supply your own house? Let me tell you something. You're not. If you want to, you can go upstate. But not in the city. Why do you care if I drink poison water? Not your problem, my problem, right? But they're not going to let you do that. And we are more and more going towards that almost like, feeling of ultimate control. I mean, you don't know your work anymore. You work anymore. You work and the government takes 50% of your money out. And then more, and then more, and then they give you tickets for driving 25 miles an hour. It's ridiculous. And then tell you it's for security. And what bothers me is that we always keep quiet about it. And we keep quiet about many things that are done wrong and we don't say anything about it. Now it doesn't make a difference. That's the attitude you're going to take with you anywhere you go. Whether it's in your shul that things are done wrong, whether it's in your home things are done wrong, whether it's in your workplace, or whether it's in your town, or it's in your country. Let me tell you something else. A society that doesn't have checks and balances in it is a very bad system. It's a system or a country or a society that goes towards fundamentalism, like for example, there's radical Islam. There's no checks and balances. So therefore it just goes worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. There's nobody's questioning, nobody asking. And if you have, for example, a shul that nobody asks any question, it's just going to get downhill. You need to have people changing powers. You can't have somebody in a position for 50 years and not moving. President, he is president for 50 years. What is that? We're in a totalitarian regime. It should change. New ideas. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and so on and so forth. So it's something completely different. It's not just the control about water, it's more than that. And they wanted to simply close them. Now you understand why the Philistines closed the wells of Avraham Avinu, because they wanted to get a grab, a hold on point of influence of the people. They wanted to be able to have the control of how to influence the people. So today it's that, at the time was that, today is the media. Today you influence people by the media, and they did not agree that Avraham Avinu would be mashpia, would influence the whole entire world with his ideas, with the spirituality, and the same thing about Yitzchak Avinu. They didn't want him to continue what Avraham Avinu was doing, even for a different way. And the struggle did not fight just who is going to sit on the water, but also they're going to start, who's going to make, to whom you're going to make a blessing. There's no such thing as the separation of church and state over there, right? You're going to do what I tell you to do. And who's going to influence the public, and how is the public is going to be influenced? So, and we are right now in Chodesh Kislev. We just started Chodesh Kislev, which really symbolizes the struggle of our culture, the Jewish struggle. Then sometimes I feel that we lost it. But the continuous struggle that the Jews have with other cultures, with foreign cultures, who is going to basically control the water? Who is controlling your opinion? How do you make your opinion? How do you judge things? When you judge things, do you judge it by the value of Torah, or you judge it by political values? So you asked me today the question, how can it be that you have such people that are like this and so on and so forth? It's very simple, because when it comes to, maybe they are big Talmidei Chachamim, but when it comes to politics, they forgot the Torah to the side, and now they go into politics. Because it's very good, because it's all about control, all these things. Why, as I explained to you, why did somebody want to become a politician? Because he wants to be control, he wants to have control, he wants to have, to be kavod and famous and fame and glory, and he wants to have control over people. You think how many politicians that really want to go in for the right reason, rather than to have, their own control, their own thing? It's basically idol worshiping. They're worshiping themselves. They tell you it's for you, but go try to find a senator. If something, let's say you voted for a senator, right? I want to see you actually getting a personal response from a senator for an urgent thing that you have or concern that you have. Nada. So what happened? Hey, I put the vote for you. So that's exactly what it was. It was a control about who's going to control the world. And in our world, it's also, we struggle. Who's going to dig the well? We are digging the wells, and they are covering it. We are digging the wells, and they are covering. Whatever we build, they destroy. Right? We build Beit HaMikdash, they destroyed it. We show God's presence in the world, they're going to make sure to destroy it. They understand very well how important it is to sit by the source of the water, the source of the bracha, the source of the shefa, of the abundance, the ability to influence people. So what they're going to do, they're going to make you look bad. They're going to take this control from you. And unfortunately, that's what we're experiencing today as well. And it's very hard to talk logic to a Jew, needless to say, to be machzirim b'tshuva, because he's being captured by other ideas. I don't know that fully if Judaism is a liberal or conservative movement. But I can tell you, if you first of all associate yourself as a liberal, well, welcome to the new religion. Because it is a very fundamentalist way of living, of thinking, and it's all about control. It's not about liberty. It's about not having liberty. That's why we don't need big government. That's why we don't need all these things. And that's, by the way, why Jews were always revolutionaries. Always. They always start a revolution because they said that we can't have it. Everybody is equal. And when they had the Martin Luther King, he was marching in the street. Rabbis used to go out to the street with Sefer Torah. The Jews gave them tons of money. But that nobody would tell you. The biggest supporters were Jews to the black movement. That nobody will tell you. Until today, you see that it's not just about control, about just like who's going to pay taxes, who's not going to pay taxes. It's a spiritual struggle that we all go through all the time. Who is going to be mashpia in the world? Who's going to have influence in the world? Is it going to be the Torah of Israel or maybe other thing? And even in Israel, it's the same thing. The whole struggle that they have in Israel is not just about politics or schmalitics. What's going to be the identity of the state of Israel? Is it going to be a Jewish identity based on halakha, or is it going to be based on something else? They keep on crying all the time, oh, Israel needs a constitution. We have a constitution. It's called Torah, habibi. But we don't want Medinat Halacha. Why? Because you threw away your Jewish identity out to a foreign identity. But don't forget, they threw you out. They threw us out from there where we were, in Europe and whatever it is. They threw us out. You the routes, go on trains, yalla, like cattle. Threw you out. In Spain, they threw us out. I'm not quite sure they're not going to throw you out from Israel also. Because the influence of foreign cultures on that, who is going to control the shefa in the world, the abundance in the world? And Israel becomes even more, what are going to be the morals? The morals are going to be something, let's say for example for education, something that is going to be in the eyes of Torah. What are going to be the guidelines for the government? What rules are we going to apply? What rules are we going to put in place, right? Let's say, even though I'm not a big fan of the chief rabbinate in Israel because it's a made-up organization altogether, but for that, in private, in different cases, it's really a made-up thing, However, they're trying to do whatever they can to control, for example, the identity of the Jewish people in the land by, keeping track on Geirut and converts and so on and so forth. So now the Israeli court, for example, comes and says, no, you can't do that. That's an invasion of privacy. But what do you have to do with that? It's a religious thing. You cannot tell me what to do. It's not just about that, but it's more of like, who is going to determine the identity and the spirituality of Israel? Now, is this going to be something, and controlling all this thing, is this something that we're going to spend, bring bracha to the world, or chas v'shalom, a curse to the world? It's very, very simple. And when we are talking about it, that's why it says, it's a choice. Either it's going to be the names that he gave them, Oshek and Sitna and Rechovot. It's also symbolic because it says Oshek, right? It's like wasting time here arguing about stuff like this, oppressing people. So it's going to be this, or it's going to be Sitna. Sitna means a very difficult, bitter war, or it's going to be, what we call Rechovot. It's going to be not Rachav, Rechovot. It's going to be not good for one person. It's going to be Rechovot. It's going to be wide for everybody. Are we going to create wealth and kindness for everybody? So that struggle of what we call Borot Hamayim, the wells, it doesn't seem like it was over just in the time of Yitzchak. It's continuing and going on today, and that's being almost the backbone of Jewish struggles throughout the years, whether with the Assyrians and the Hellenists and the Romans and the Moors in Spain and the Christians in the emancipation in Europe and conservatives and reforms and so on and so forth. Is how we're going to dictate and determine the spiritual fate of Am Yisrael, and together with that, the spiritual fate of the world. And we need to understand it. We need to stand guard on that, and that's something that is very, very important. You should speak up and say something. Now, it's very interesting that Avraham Avinu dug those wells. the Philistines covered them, Yitzchak Avinu dug the same exact wells. And we could do the same thing that those fathers did. Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov. We can tap into this kindness of giving and helping and giving an example, to everybody else. Before they're going to turn to an irreversible side, to the point of no return. And believe me, there is a point of no return. You can't always come back. There's going to be time that you can't. And we should do what we need to do in order to be able to be mashpia, to influence those neshamot of converts that will spread up all over the world. And we are here among one of the reasons is also to bring the light to those souls so they can come back to the pool of Jewish things. And some of them were not going to make it. And some Jews are not going to make it. But we need to understand that it's a battle, it's a war, and you can't give up. And that means doing everything necessary to maintain your Jewish identity. You don't cut corners when it comes to who you are in terms of halakha. Whether it's your workplace, whether it's your internship, whether it's anything else that you do. You have to wear your kippah. That's your identity. You should have a beard. You're a Jewish man. Does halacha requires me to have a beard? No. Halacha tells me not to shave in a certain way. But that's the image of a Jewish person, and I need to go with it, not run away from it. And all those things. How do you eat at home? What do you do at home? On your Shabbat table, do you speak Divrei Torah or you talk about politics? How does this get along with your Shabbat table? In your shul, are you operating a shul as a country club? What is this? Is shul about a place that promotes Torah and unity and brotherhood, or a place that promotes, money making, hatred and gossip? And don't sit in the back, wait for somebody to do the work. You speak up. It's enough. It's time to get out of the darkness. Let's step into the light. And by doing so, and understanding that, and supporting one another, we walk hand in hand. We walk in a line. We walk in a line and we cover the ground. One support the other, and together we become a great light. Yes, even one little candle can remove a great darkness. But imagine if there are many little candles, what a great light does it do? And we support one another, walk hand in hand, sit down with each other. Say, listen, what do you want out of life? What do you want out of the shul? Do you have an idea how you want your shul to look like? And if your shul is not willing to change according to that, make one that is going to be like that. Because it's a great battle. And those forces, call it the forces of evil, we'll call it in terms of that, had really penetrated among our ranks. And they are interested in controlling people, not bringing shefa and abundance to the people. And we need to fight it. And when we're going to plant the seeds, we're going to find the gate.